Laura, welcome back to the podcast. How have you been?
Hello, I'm glad to be back. I have been good. Lots of change, lots of upgrades, but in a really, really good space mentally, physically, spiritually for the most part. So I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
That's amazing. If you caught Laura's last episode, I mean, Laura has done episodes in previous years, but her episode that we have recorded for this year was pretty full on. It was all about how to make decisions according to your human design because Laura has had a year of having to make a lot of unexpected decisions. And so if you heard that episode, you would have heard that had moved through a lot. And as she continues to do so, I don't know, you're in such a good place. Like, and your whole life has changed. Where you live has changed. Your relationship status has changed. Your job has changed. Like, everything's changed.
Yeah, and whilst we're on the topic of human design, it's very manifesting generator of me to have done that. So we'll talk
Okay.
about that a little bit more in a
All
minute. But
right. All right.
yeah,
Perfect. Well, let's kick it off with pulling a card. Oh, the blessings card. How nice. How
I
nice.
like
Do
that.
you know what? I will say that, we have a lot of access, I guess, to spiritual tools and to understanding ourselves in different ways. And I think the combination of, things like astrology and human design and understanding healing modalities and experiencing them really helps us to get a sense of ourselves that is not at all influenced by conditioning or culture. And it's because it's
Mm,
a real like internal journey. And I think
mm,
that's the blessing, not just of what we do in our work life, but also how we pursue our personal lives as well, because we're obviously invested in
mm,
knowing the internal world so well that's stripped of any of the expectations and the programming. And
mm.
I don't know about you, but the more I dive into understanding myself that way, the more blessed I become and the more life blesses me because it's just that bridge back to authenticity.
Yeah. And like how can it not be a blessing if you are remembering what you came here for and what you came here with?
Mm.
And I really like the comment you made there around the way in which we are taught to be, move, what to like, what not to like, in any aspect of our lives, like even the way houses are built, the way that we look at them, the way that we all want to live in the same kind of house. And I think what the modalities do is remind us that we're not the same and it's okay and we shouldn't be forcing that. And it sounds maybe very basic, but the basic principle of it is self-discovery. And if self-discovery doesn't feel like a blessing, then that's something to even think about in the context of that, really. So,
Yeah, like why, like you say, like why wouldn't it?
yeah.
Why wouldn't it? And what are you paying? Like what is the price of admission to
Mm.
conformity?
Mm.
Because I think it's a lot greater than the price of admission to authenticity,
Mm.
even though
You
we're
see
told the
it
opposite.
yeah, but you see it in any which way, right? Like if you burnout is a classic example. We're not No one is designed to run themselves into the ground, but we do it because we've been told to do it. And every human on this planet isn't designed to sustain uh, the way of life or the pace of life in which we have been taught is going to get you where you want to be, or get you the promotion, get you the house, get you the car, get you what you want. And there's so many stories around, okay, you get the house and then you're still not happy. And
Mm.
so what was it all for? And so there's the question for me is at what does that cost you by going away from who you naturally are and the way in which you should naturally flow in your life?
Absolutely. And I acknowledge that it's a privilege to do so. And I've been seeing a lot of social commentary on how millennials in particular are very, very angry and distrusting of baby boomers. I think my generation, Gen X, we're somewhere in the middle where I think we have our toe in both camps. But the idea that we were told to follow the path they followed and we'd get the results that they got. And it's
Mm.
a total lie because the way a baby boomer could approach life through hard work, through conformity, through climbing a ladder was reward and their long-term goals were rewarded. Whereas now that system does not, it just does not exist. And and so people will look at the work I think that people like you and I do, increasingly seeing how necessary it is because we need to find new ways to do things because the version of success or security that we've been sold, the formula, sorry, no longer works out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't it at the moment I feel like there's a push to try and force it, but then there's
Mm.
the uprise in people not wanting to. And I do a lot of work with human design and leadership development. And the struggle that I witness for most managers that I speak to, sort of mid-level managers, is the difference between what they have been told is success versus what the younger generation coming through has been building towards what success looks like for them. And it's the values are very different. And so it's something that is changing, and I think it's going to be there'll be a huge change in sort of 2027. That's part of the kind of human design of the planet. There'll be a huge shift. We did a podcast, I think it was
Mhm.
last year, on that, and there's going to be a huge shift
Pop that
around.
into the show notes. It was all about the human design of the planet.
Yeah, so it's changing. It's called an incarnation cross, which is like where we go into the ultimate sort of purpose of the like the experience that we're going to have. And at the moment, it's in what we call the cross of planning, which is very much around structures that were put in place that were meant to enable and support us. So things like governments and all of that
Banking
fun world we
system
won't get into.
and
Yeah, like
healthcare
social
and
systems and
yeah.
healthcares and all of that was meant to be put in place to help us, and it no longer serves us because it hasn't changed. And what we're moving into is more sovereignty, more empowerment of the self. And so there is a ton of destruction in the world right now.
Mm.
Um, but we're going into the basically the rise of the sleeping phoenix, which is in order to do that, everything has to burn.
Mm.
So it's really about, and I'm not saying, there is absolute devastation in the world right now,
Mm.
but the change in which is coming is around more sovereignty, more empowerment of the self, more work on the self in order to support the collective. So it switches in 2027. So obviously when things change, there's going to be a lot of work to do, but the people who have been doing the work thus far will be able to face the journey and it won't be as jarring versus the ones that have been sort of lost, or not lost is probably too strong, but not necessarily entertaining the idea of learning about the self. It's tough, right? It's confronting. So
It is, but by listening to this, you are on that path just because you're opening your awareness and your consciousness to it. And
yeah.
I think, I know that you work a lot with companies and businesses and the individuals in those that have a lot of responsibility for bottom lines and driving forward. And a big part of, I guess, cultural, how do I call it? Cultural defiance, I
Mm.
believe, is driven by burnout.
Mhm.
And a lot of, my past 10 years has been driven by burnout. And it really wasn't until you started to educate me on human design and how, just as in astrology, we might be pointing to character traits or
Mhm.
personality approaches and perspectives on life. Human design has a really potent way of describing our own personal energy system and how we can use our energy to be the most productive, effective, but also vibrant, sovereign versions of ourselves. And that really empowered me because definitely on that hamster wheel for so many years of you show up every day, 110% grind, hustle, your hard work will be rewarded. And
Mm.
it, in many ways, sure, that worked out for me, but at such diabolical costs to my health, physically and mentally. So I'm really invested in understanding and getting this information out there to those people that are listening on what is it like to be who you are energetically, and how do we functionally use our energy, or should use our energy literally throughout each and every day to approach our day so we can be more effective. So
Mm.
over to you. Let's break it down. Where should we start, or who should we start with?
Yeah, so I thought today we would be really good to go through one of the fundamental aspects of human design, which is understanding your energy type. Human design is one of those modalities very similar to astrology. It does actually use astrology, but you can go down the rabbit hole on it, and it can become very overwhelming. But the beauty of it is that you can make it as relevant or as simple to you as needed. And so we will start with what we call the energy types because it is one of the most foundational elements that you can learn. And once you start to see where this shows up, the other elements of human design will start to make sense. And so when we talk about energy type, your energy type is essentially your aura. It's the way in which you generally move and are felt in the world. So when you're interacting with others, often you will feel a person before you see a person
Mm.
most of the time, especially if you are in tune with those elements. And so your energy type is very much focused on the way in which you feel to others, the way in which you show up. And it has it has various different pinpoints to it. And so there's five, so we'll go through all five of them today, and I'll give a brief overview of each of them, sort of how they feel, and some of the kind of general characteristics about them. If the folks listening know their energy type, you'll be able to pick out which one's relevant to you. If you don't, you can go to the website and actually download a free debrief, and it will give you an introduction to some of the aspects we're going to talk about today, but it will give you your energy type. So you can look that up and
And I'm
then
going to put a
re-listen.
link to that directly in the bio. It's actually on the Meet Laura page. If you just scroll to the bottom, it's like a big box there that says free human design report. So click on that, fill out your details, like birth date, stuff like that, and
Yeah.
you will know which energy type you are. So if you don't know your energy type, probably go ahead and do that now. Otherwise, the rest of this chat will not make much sense to you.
Yeah, you might be able to guess, but sometimes when people guess, I always find it interesting because it could be that they are actually acting in a not self situation. So they could feel like they are a different energy type because of the environment in which they're in and the constructs in which they are pushing themselves in.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so it can be very interesting to confront it and actually talk about it because there's our natural way of going and being and doing. And then there's the way in which we've been taught to go about doing life and being in life, etc. So, okay, so we will start with, let's start with manifesting generators because I mentioned it
Yep.
earlier. So manifesting generators are kind of similar to one of the other energy types, which is called the generator, but they have a bit of a twist. So when we look at manifesting generators, they are our bullet trains, basically, is how I would describe them. And they tend to be very get up and go because they have what we call a lot of sustainable energy. So, to give a metaphor, it's like every day a manifesting generator will wake up with a full tank of gas. And part of their job throughout the day is to use that fuel. And you want to make sure that you're using it because it's meant to be used. That tank of fuel is called a life force. Like that's the life force energy, and it's a very proactive energy for getting stuff done. It's like this worker bee energy. And what that can feel like is you're the one that will often get things done. You're the one that will generally have the kind of urge to stay on and complete something in many aspects, but you want to focus that energy on what really lights you up. And what I mean by lights you up is that you are generally genuinely interested in what you are doing. Now, that is something that, first and foremost, a lot of people can't get their head around because it's like, oh, well, I have to do this because of this reason, and I have to do this because of this reason. A lot of the time, manifesting generators will show up to things because they can, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that they should be doing. And there is this sense of guilt that comes from society that we shouldn't focus on the stuff that we love doing because it feels too good. It doesn't feel hard enough. It doesn't feel like I'm working hard enough at it. But often manifesting generators are very quick start. So they will be very quick off the bat. They will focus their energy and they can do a hell of a lot in one day that often people look in and go, my gosh, like you've done so much today. That would take me all week to do. And they've done things within one day. The other thing around manifesting generators is that they will often flip and flop between things. But that is the whole point of what they're doing because they are part doer, which is the generator, and then they're part creator and like initiator. So many gens will often feel like they are switching gears all the time and maybe don't seem to be able to focus on something for any amount of time, or they get bored easily. An example is like you might start reading a book and then halfway through, or even a quarter of a way through, you're very happy to just put it down and walk
That
away from it.
sends
And
me
you may
insane. Like,
you may never come back to it, or you might come back to it 6 months later, pick up where you left off, and then get what you need from it. But the point is that every time they switch, they've gotten what they needed from that experience, and it's time to move on. So I
mm,
can give an example. Like I have pivoted, my career has gone all over the place. And the longest kind of position I've held was my former position, which was 3.5, nearly 4 years. But before that, it was kind of 2 years. I would go in hard, do a really great job, and then be like, okay, I'm done here. I need to move on to the next thing. Um, and another classic example is that I'll have so many tabs open during the day, and I'll flip-flop between all of them. So it's not that I'm focusing on one thing, I'm focusing on multiple things, and they're all moving forward. Um, but in order for me to complete one, I have to work on all of them. So
yeah.
it's
So just
quite
to
a
give you
busy
some
energy.
context, like when you said before about how you might be able to guess what you are,
Mhm.
I would have on the Bible sworn that I was a manifesting generator.
Mhm.
Because I fit all of those, except I do like to finish things. So I could not pick up a book and just, that's no, even if I hate the book, I'm reading it. So that's the
Mhm.
only aspect of that characteristic that I would have said that doesn't suit, but the rest of it, now because I understand myself better, I realize that was conditioning. That's how I was raised. That's how I was praised. And that's how I manage to manipulate success by being
Mhm.
that. Now that I
Mhm.
know myself better, that is absolutely not at my core natural energy who I am. And it takes a really long time to shift gears and to get your head around doing things differently, using your energy differently. So that's why I like go get that report so you know what you are rather than just assuming what you are. Like literally when Laura did my chart originally, I'm like, I think you did it wrong. That's wrong. I'm definitely not that energy type.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, just buyer beware. Like, don't assume
yeah.
because that's what I would have assumed. I would have been like, right, I'm on the right track, wondering why I kept getting burnt
Mhm.
out, wondering why I could only experience a certain level of success because I was
Mhm.
approaching life using my energy in the total wrong way.
Yeah,
So I love
yeah.
manifesting generators. I wish I was one naturally. I've tried my hardest to be one. But I think there's
It's
downsides, as you know. But
I think when you it's like when you have straight hair, you want curly hair, and when you have curly hair, you want straight hair. And so I think the beauty in manifesting generators is that there is a sustained amount of energy, like there is that access to resource
Mm,
every day, and the need to burn it is very much there. That's not to say that they don't get burnt out,
mhm.
they do, but often the burnout can come after a longer period because they do have that sustained energy. Now, it's all sounds great, but what can happen with manifesting generators characteristically is that A, when they burn out hard. And B, another example is that there can often be a lot of frustration because the path isn't always very clear, because there's so many interests, and the creative side of who they are. They know they're meant to be creating, but they also know they're meant to be doing. So it's kind of devil's advocate because you have the capability to do both, but you're often creating blindly because you don't know where it's going to come from, because you're experiencing and you're designed to experience a lot of different things. So I will have so many ideas and I want to bring them all together and I might go after so many ideas. But I now know, because I know my energy type, I know that even if I switch an idea, there's a lesson in that, and I will take something from that to create something new. So they're constantly creating new things. So their path might be all over the show, but it's in order for them to take exactly what they need from all
Mm.
those experiences in order to create something new, because they have the creator and the doer.
So, what are your top two tips for effectively harnessing your, if you are a manifesting generator energy?
Um, Follow what you're interested in and trust when you are done with it, you're done with it. And there's no shame in it. Move on. And to follow the next interest. Because you will know when it's time to put that down. So trust it. The second thing is, because of the amount of interests, don't mistake it for confusion. Allow it to happen because you don't know what you're creating yet because you haven't created it. But when you see it, then you will put your energy towards it and you will be able to do it quickly.
Great.
Um, so we'll move on to generators because
Yep.
manifesting generators and generators are similar in many ways. They both have that generator energy, so that full tank of gas every day. However, generators are here to really share their energy with others because a lot of their life force energy will drive and be borrowed by other people, but they are often masterful at their craft because they will be able to really dive in deep into one or two particular areas, unlike the manifesting generator who's got that creative energy about them. So it's like renew, renew, renew. Generators are more consistent. They have more stamina to stay in what they're doing and to become masterful at it. But that they are the true worker bees of all of the energy types. And these are the ones that will often be very relied upon to get stuff done. They're often extremely trustworthy, because they can be so relied upon to get stuff done. A classic example I give is they're the ones that are in finance at the end of the month, working until midnight because it has to be done, and they've got the stamina to do it. The thing with generators is that often they forget that they do have a choice of what they point their energy at.
Okay.
So my biggest piece of advice for a generator, and this is if this is you, is just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Okay.
So just because you can build up the energy to put those extra 6 hours in this week, it doesn't mean you should, because you might want to spend those extra 6 hours doing something that lights you up, whether it's, I don't know, self-care, whether it's spending time with family, whether it's doing nothing and actually reading a book because that lights you up. Generators are the world is essentially designed for generators right now because it is that hustle, it is that consistent energy flow, it is becoming masterful at your craft. But what can happen is that that can be mistaken for the want to do it versus actually, am I choosing to do it?
That totally reflects to me current exercise culture. So you're
Yeah.
a Pilates girl, or you're a Hydrox person, or you're a CrossFitter, and it's like you go all in and it becomes your entire personality and you're so consistent with it and you're a master at it. And it just totally doesn't suit most people to work out like that.
Yeah, and it can be a really consistent focus, and then all of a sudden you decide to change it, but you might not leave it until you feel you have exhausted your capabilities in that area. Whereas a manifesting generator is different. They will be like, oh, I'm done with that now. Off I go, like on to the next. Whereas a generator would want to make sure that they're focusing their energy on something that really lights them up. And it's so important that they do that because they will stay where they might not be happy because they can and they can get through it. And oh, I can drum up the energy to do that. That's not a problem. Or this person needs me and I know I can do it, so I'm just going to do it. But it's a beautiful energy that is here to do work that you love. And that's often a common mistake with generators. And this is a lot of the clients that I teach when they are generators. It's this understanding that you get to choose the work that you love too. Because imagine if you went hard or into what you loved, what you could do,
Mm.
rather than going hard into something that you don't love just because you can.
So, what are your top two tips to harness generator energy throughout the day?
Notice where you spend your time and enjoy it versus just doing it because you have to or you think you have to. And I would always remember that when you get invited to do something or you get asked to do something, you have a choice, and to see where you are pushing your own boundaries and start to see if you can put some boundaries up against where you spend your time, because it's also important for you to spend your time on doing things that you truly love. And no one gets to dictate what you love to you.
Love that. Love that.
So let's move on to our projectors, which is yours. See, I'm surrounded by projectors and I love it. Um, and I notice it now anytime I meet somebody new and I'm like, I think you're a projector. So our lovely projectors are they are unique because they have a gift of what we call being a guide for others. And I don't mean it in a way that's uh, you have to guide everybody in the world. Um, Projectors don't get to choose who they guide. So what I mean by that is projector energy is actually quite penetrating. So if you think of like your aura, so your sort of 3 foot energy field around you, and if you were to hold like a cone, a traffic cone, to your chest and just point it, that would be what projector energy is like. They will often be felt by other people because when they are facing someone, their energy is going through them as if it is seeing through them. So projectors have a really incredible sense of, I say like bullshit, um, because they can generally see through situations and it can be misused, and it can be the gift of being able to see that and sharing it must be respected.
Mm.
And that's what can come off sometimes for projectors is that they can be opinionated, bossy, kind of rude at times, because projectors are here to provide guidance to those who are ready to receive it. and those who are reaching out for it. So they generally have to be invited in to share. If they don't, it comes across as unsolicited advice, which is difficult in a world when you can see things happening, um, and you sort of have to bite your tongue a little bit unless it's offered, and asked to be received. Um, because of the penetrating energy, it can sometimes shake other energy types. So they'll feel it, but they don't necessarily know what it is. So a projector might walk into a room and and other people can feel it, and they might be a little bit standoffish, but it's nothing to do with you. It's just the energy of the sort of bullshit radar that you have, that other people feel it and they sort of don't really know what to do with it. But it's a beautiful way because you can support guiding others in what they're doing. Now, projectors don't have that get up and go energy that I was describing in the generators and the manifesting generators. They are what we call non-sacral beings. So if you think about their gas tank, it's like 50% a day. So the energy that you have is to be used wisely. And so if I were to put a time frame on like the hours of work a projector would do, you're looking at sort of 5-ish hours a day of concentrated work because their gifts are often harnessed during rest. So whilst they're getting the guidance to be able to share with others, they have to be in a sort of restful, calm state. And in order to do that, they have to have like restful experiences. And if you're pushing yourself as a projector, you won't be able to seek the guidance that you would get in down periods. So some of the biggest shifts that I've seen is that individuals who realize that they are a projector are in really, really fast-paced, um, highly driven environments like paramedic is one of my clients who she's quit her job now and now she does the arts that she is so good at and create like crafts that she's wanted to do, and now she is thriving in that environment because she chooses her hours, she's putting her energy into something that she loves, but she's not working 12-hour shifts 4 days a week and then having 4 days off. She's very consistent in her flow. She knows when she's resting and she knows when she's working, but it's again work that she loves. So they don't have consistent access to that energy, and rest is super, super important. They might find that they burn out a lot faster if they are in an environment that is pushing them more than they should be doing, particularly if it's an environment that's not conducive of um, uh, breaks as such.
The downside of not knowing your energy type and respecting it is that like my burnout has become a lifelong disease. um,
Yeah.
because like I was so determined and so conditioned to keep pushing. And
Mhm.
I can go 12, 14 hours in a day. But I know it's not healthy. And when I do respect my energy flow and the amount that I want to work, everything in life flourishes. Absolutely everything in life flourishes. And also understanding like that penetrating energy that I just hold, because on the inside I don't obviously see myself like that, and I don't see myself as someone who would be discombobulating or even threatening to others. Yet that is a lot of how I'm received, especially environments that kind of have asked for my advice, but then they don't really want it. And it's like it's plagued me for so long. Like I just couldn't understand why it was always so much harder for me in a lot
Mhm.
of ways. It's like, especially like when I was in leadership in my previous role, like one person could say something and everyone would be like, oh, okay. And I would say it and everyone would be like, you're so demanding, you're such a bitch. And it's like, I literally just said what she said.
Yeah.
We're both saying the same thing. I don't understand. But like And so I've had to do, yeah, a lot of work, of inner work around this and of acceptance and then conscious shifting and changing of habits and routines. And yeah, I'm still definitely a work in progress on that because, like
Mm.
I said, I really want to be a manifesting generator. I'd love to go all day. I'd love that. But I have to respect that that is not what I am.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you say that around work environments because the energy can be mistaken.
Mm.
Um, and if you don't know that someone is a projector and they have the ability to guide you, it's it's like I always call it unsolicited advice. And so a big tip, my big tip for projectors, if you discover or you already know that you are a projector, offer your guidance through an invitation and see if somebody accepts it first, because your guidance will be wasted if the person isn't ready to receive it.
What if you're in
So,
a position though, like, so when I was in leadership, like I had to,
Mhm,
like part of my role is asking my staff for certain things and ensuring expectations were met. So like
mhm,
we would literally, like I used to experiment with this. I would be like, okay, how are you going to say it to your team? I'm going to say it exactly the same way. Or we'd send the exact same email and people
mm,
would complain about how demanding I was and no one would mention the other girl.
mm,
So what
mm,
happens when you're in a position where you have to, or like you're a mother, like you have to tell your kid?
mm. I would say in that I would in that situation I would coach you around what it is that you want to say rather than you copying somebody else. And I would work with you on how you are allowing the invitation for you to be able to share with them. What I mean by that is sort of asking somebody, I've got some thoughts on that. Would you mind if I shared them?
But what if you just had to be like, this is due, or like this has to be done? Because you're
So I
literally in a position of leadership.
Yeah, so as I would with any leader, is if the thing hasn't been done, you already know it hasn't been done. So the question isn't um like why hasn't this been done? It's when are you going to do that by? Right? And so it's putting it on them, not you telling them. There are situations where you have to say, okay,
Yeah,
that deadline is
this
going
is
to
the
be
timeline of
me.
this. Yeah, yeah.
This is the timeline. But when you're leading other people, the you want to as much as you can, and this is so against how we're taught to lead.
Mm, mm,
You want to, as much as you can, put the onus on that person because the more the person leads themselves, the more you can actually do your leadership role, which is steering the ship, which is forecasting what's coming down the pike, right? So if you think about when you're on a ship, the crew need to be aware of what sail needs to go up, when it needs to go down, what waves we're going to hit, but you need to know that that is running so that you can be on the top of the mast looking out
mm.
for danger, other boats, icebergs, all of those things.
Yeah.
But you can't do that if you are simply just directing. So there's a big difference between giving direction and directing. One is more, here's the direction, you get us there. The other one is follow these steps in order to get there.
Yeah,
But you want to,
it's so fascinating to me. Like, so I'll
yeah.
just keep playing with it. I'll just keep like
Yeah.
nutting it away. But like as you always say, like the tip is just to wait for the invitation or to seek it and also
Mm.
yeah, to rest. That's the thing that's totally changed my life, to rest.
Yeah. And you will feel how more inspired you are when you take rest, because that's
Yeah.
when little ideas will come in.
Oh, yeah.
And resting to you might be sitting down and relaxing, reading a book, getting inspired that way. It might be taking a little walk. It might be doing yoga, meditation, nothing. Like it could be all of these things, but the rest is really important because it's where the goods come in.
It truly is.
And okay, so then we move on to our manifestors.
Hmm.
So manifestors they're reasonably rare. They're not the rarest, but they are the big, bold, beautiful initiators.
Mm.
Manifestors are all creation. They are all jumping into new things, initiating. They don't have the sacral like the generators and the manifesting generators.
Okay.
They are pure creation. So those are the ones that are often um, told that they are too much, told that they need to fall in line, told that they are the rebels, and they are often the ones that feel like they don't quite fit because they have all of these big ideas, but they're not able to express them. They can get pretty frustrated with that situation to the point where they then sort of shut down and become a bit aloof. They are generally lone wolves by character. So they don't necessarily need or want the opinions of others in order to create or initiate. It's a really, really powerful energy. And if it's harnessed, like all of these, if it's harnessed and respected, it's incredible what can be created. They often pair well with generators because it's like all of this wonderful creation, and then they have the generator to come in and be like, right, what work do we need to be doing and how consistently do we need to be doing it? But it's a big energy. Often their energy goes into the room before they do.
Okay.
It's a very potent energy. And it can feel a lot for them. It can feel overwhelming. And sometimes it can feel like they're not doing enough. But again, they are not to be running around and working 16-hour days. They're very similar to the projectors in that way that 5 hours a day focusing on what they love is great for them because a lot of their creation and the dots being connected comes through rest. So a lot of manifesting generators will work in ebbs and flows. So they might go when they're inspired and they're working on something creative, you might not see them for 2 weeks because they're just heads down in it. And then you might not see them for another week after that because they've crashed and they are sleeping and resting and doing what they need to do. But they have to have that ebb and flow in order to satisfy the creativity. It's very common for a manifester to just generally disappear for a bit, and then come back. So we've all got those friends who just, you're like, what have you been up to? And they're just like, oh, like doing this stuff, and it'll be something random. But they've just been exploring and creating, and they often don't inform people of what they're doing because typically they are told not to do something. So they just won't say anything because they don't want to be stopped from creating.
So what are they like with schedules?
Usually it's on their own terms.
Mm.
So it's if they're interested in it and they've got the energy for it, you'll see them. If not, you probably won't see them
Okay.
because they'll be off doing something else or they'll just be resting.
So I guess if you're a manifestor, it's really important that you honor that, that you're not
Yep.
going to have like a scheduled workout class, or you're not going to be 9 to 5, probably.
Yeah, it will be very much on where they feel most aligned as to where they focus their energy. I've got a couple of manifestor friends, and it is very common for me not to hear from them for a while. And then when I see them, they've sort of been doing all of these things. But they're my biggest tip for a manifestor, if you know this about yourself, just let people know what you're doing so
Yes.
that they can either help you or they can get out of your way.
And if they want to block it or put it down, what's the best
If
way
they
to
want
deal
to,
with it?
it's to explain that this is something that's really important and how do we go about sort of shifting so that I can move in this direction.
Okay.
Um, they'll often just do it anyway. So
Good. Good.
because it's something that lights them up, if they don't do it, it will push them into their not self theme, which is anger.
Okay.
But when they are in their flow and they are creating and initiating, their signature, so the way that they feel when they are in flow, is peace.
Okay. Love that.
Yeah. So my tips for manifestors is just tell people what you're doing. People will either get on your train or they'll jump off of it. And be unapologetic about it. If you're inspired by something, go for it. And ride the ebb and flow. Don't beat yourself up if you just aren't inspired at the moment. Just rest and know that it will come back.
Okay. We have one more energy type to go. You patient reflectors, you have been waiting,
Yeah.
or maybe
So
you've
our
scrolled through to this
reflector,
point.
I
So,
know.
our gorgeous reflectors.
So our reflectors are the most rare. They're
Mm.
they're not very common. So if you are a reflector or you know a reflector, hold on to them.
Okay.
Because they are very important. I'm lucky enough to work quite closely with one reflector, so I get to see it in the real life, in the flesh. Reflectors are very rare. They are what we call the mirrors. So they are fully open in their human design, which means that their environment is intensely important to them because they will, just like their name says, reflect back the environments that they're in and the energy types that they are around. So it's a beautiful, it can be a bit challenging if you don't understand it, but it is a beautiful energy because it is very aware of the environments that it's in.
Mhm.
And it has quite a humanitarian feel about it because it will be able to witness what is working in the community and what's not working in the community.
Okay. Well, gosh, we need you reflectors now.
Yes. And they're particularly rare for that reason because there if we can't have too many of them, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
can't have too many cooks in
Um,
the kitchen.
Yeah. And so when they are at their best is when they ride their lunar cycle. So they might find as a reflector, you might find that you often feel um like you are in between decisions or you don't quite know how you feel about something a lot of the time. Your the way your energy flows is actually in line with the lunar cycle. So don't be afraid to take your time with decisions, how you feel about something, whether you're committing to something or not. And be very mindful of who you are around when you are making those decisions and what environments you're in. If you feel icky in a place, leave
Okay.
because your body is responding to the environment it's in. And if something feels off or you're feeling like someone's energy is off, you don't need to force it. You don't need to stay there. My A bit early, but my piece of advice is that if you feel something is icky and in your gut you're not, or in your kind of general intuition, you're not feeling that this is right, leave it.
Okay.
And that goes for where you do your work, where you live, the people that you're around. Um, One of the reflectors that I have coached, they moved location and she was there for a year and she did not feel right in that energy. It was something that they had to do um for her partner. But then she was looking for places, they were looking for other areas to live, and she landed in this one area and she just knew instantly, like she was calmer, she had a really good feeling about it. She was nervous, but she was like, I this feels calm, this feels like I could live here. And she's been there sort of 6, 7 years now. But it was about responding to the fact that she didn't feel right in this environment and she had some health concerns that came up in that wrong environment because of stress and depletion and whatnot. But they are mirrors to whom they are working with. So often what will happen is if they're in an environment that's stressful, they will feel the stress heavily. If they're in an environment that's energetic, they will feel the energetic, upbeat energy heavily. But because they are also non-sacral beings, so they don't have that consistent energy. Rest again is really important, and also detaching from other people's energy because they'll absorb it because they're so open and they're reflective. A lot of the time, what they feel is the energy of the room, the energy of the space that they're in, the energy of the people around them. So it's important to really discern whether that's the way in which they feel or whether that's the situation that they've been in.
Okay.
They can see what works in a community, they can see what works in often in partnership between just people in general. They're really good advisors for culture
Mm.
because they're able to, the reflectors that I know will put events together, and it's like, how did you pick all of these people so well? But they know naturally what works.
Oh, I love that. Love that. So
Yeah.
besides rest and like really respecting how a space and how a person feels and responding to that, what else would you give them as their top tip?
I would say you won't be certain of things until you give yourself time.
Okay.
So give yourself as much time as you need to feel into how you feel about something. So again, the world is set up that we have to make decisions really quickly and we have to know exactly what we want. Give yourself, I would always say, give yourself a lunar cycle if you
Which is
can
just
to
forward.
go.
It's not even that long. It's 29.5 days.
Yeah, give yourself at least a lunar cycle to process things and to see how you feel about it as much as you can. And that is yours to own. And if you need to set boundaries up against that, then I encourage you to do so, because it will allow you the time to actually feel into what you're doing. Otherwise, you run the risk of taking on too much and being in environments that don't suit you. It's very it's a huge energy, much like manifestors. It's a huge energy to manage, I would say.
Okay, so hopefully you got a little insight there into yourself and maybe why you're received the way you're received or why you move the way you move. And then by having that insight, you're able to harness your energy more effectively. Obviously, everyone head to the Meet Laura page, get your energy type so you know. But then if you want to dive deeper, obviously you can work with Laura or just shoot us your questions because we're so happy to answer them either through the podcast or through our content. And we've got heaps more ideas of stuff that we want to talk to you about to really help you in that blessing of knowing yourself really deeply. So as always, Laura, thank you for bringing your gifts to us to help us do just that.
Thank you. I love talking about this stuff. So just to echo what Kirsten was saying, like any questions that you have, please reach out. This is something that I've been working with for 5, 6 years now, and it has completely changed the way I show up to life. So the more people
Your
know, the
life.
better.
This is your whole life. This is your life now. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.